Take care.
You too.
This is Johnny Bluestar. Welcome to Threshold, a global media event. Is the universe just a random dance of atoms, or is it a manifestation of a supremely intelligent architect? Can its purpose, or our purpose here on Earth, be adequately assessed? Can we commune with it, know its intentions, cooperate with its direction? Here, we define threshold as a gateway state of awareness, allowing mankind to cross into a place of real cognition. Threshold allows us to approach questions of higher reality through the door of experience, rather than mere belief. Welcome to Threshold, where we tear away the veil from commercial media, bringing our audience and participants into another realm of reality and enhanced communication. This is Johnny Bluestar. Welcome back to Threshold. Listen carefully to the introduction one or more times. You may have realized this show is fundamentally about personal empowerment through political, social, and individual transformation. It postulates that there exists a level of spiritual transformation that allows an individual to receive healing, guidance, and the fulfillment of his or her desires. Although I'm not a follower of the late Wayne Dyer in the sense of being absolutely circumscribed by his teachings, which he would not want anyway, I've learned something about the secrets of manifestation after decades of following false trails after reading his works. I recommend the book I Can See Clearly Now, which is also available for free on YouTube in audio form. If anyone wishes to join a discussion group about Wayne Dyer's teachings, which I am managing in LinkedIn, please send me a connect request. Part of our mission here is to help our listeners connect spiritually in the real world of business, politics, and personal relationships. One of the people I'm working with now is Sandra LaFlamme, a real estate expert with a very big vision of the world. I'm assisting her now as an editor on a project that I think has powerful transformatory value for the business arena. It is a project regarding something we might call conscious sales, the very opposite of the sales practice fostered on the public by so many salespeople who have often been seduced by sales training systems that teach them to lie, exaggerate, and manipulate their clients, even as with certain alleged neuro-linguistic programming training, to coax their clients into highly suggestive states, facilitating sales for the seller's benefits. Sandra's system, based on her own success in various sales systems, but particularly in real estate sales, is founded solidly on spiritual principles. Good morning, Sandra.
Good morning, Johnny.
Tell us about your sales project, which involves books, webinars, corporate training, founded on the integration of profitability and personal transformation into an essentially spiritual sales training system.
Thank you, Johnny. Surrender does not mean submission. In other words, even when you look it up as a synonym, I'm yielding and willing to believe God is on my side, and knowing that what we do when we're interfacing with buyers or sellers or clients has an effect on them and everyone around us. And we see that, and I have found over a period of time that involves putting the white hat on, being really conscious of that moment in time that I'm with that person, helping them move towards something that's truly creative in their environment. Generally in my business, it's real estate, the single largest, most financial investment they have. And we're moving towards profitability. We're moving towards a relationship, and we're moving towards an end result, and not leaving behind who we are or who we believe is a good God within us.
I think that a lot of people who follow other sort of manifestation principles are essentially more interested in forcing their own will upon the universe and therefore having the manifestation that they desire. But unfortunately, that kind of cuts them out of the experience of their own relationship or the sense of divine presence that we believe is integral into the process of really being able to manifest anything important. I mentioned before that this training came out of your personal experience with your own work in real estate and previous sales endeavors. Can you go into your background a little bit, Sandra, and say why you found it necessary to evolve this kind of system?
Thank you, Johnny. My background, I have had training in public speaking, and I have been able to help people through, as a computer expert, trained first at Iowa State University. I graduated there with a business science degree, and then as a Series 7 investment advisor, but gaining momentum helped me with that background because I knew a lot about computers and I knew a lot about people, having grown up in Iowa in a small farming town, and that was a primary important thing for my parents. But moving forward with that education, then with the experience, and then finding helping people transition into U2000 compliance meant being very present and understand where they were coming from, what was important to them, and where, as a corporate goal, we needed to go in a very short period of time. So with that skill and practice and ability, when I saw an opportunity living in northern Kentucky, Cincinnati area, to invest my own money in property, I found that the effort, the shoulder-to-shoulder effort, was very meaningful, and finding out this is my money, this is what's going to work, and if I was wrong, I would be risking that, and knowing that the stakes are high, and always applying that with whoever I'm working with, that was the beginning of a real transformation in wanting to know for sure for my own finances and for the people that I'm working with. It worked well for me when I was teaching and training and speaking, and then moving forward with higher stakes, higher dollar amounts when I'm assisting buyers and sellers who this is such an important transaction, and it generally happens in a short period of time when a buyer or seller identifies that this is the very moment that they're ready.
You know, so
and
many
asking
people,
the right questions always.
So many people think that working in a spiritual matrix means basically isolating yourself, going into a cave, that spirituality is really something you do alone in a dark room or a cave or in a monastery. But actually, what I found in trying to understand this phenomena of attempting to commune with the divine is that it's everywhere. And that it's particularly important, it needs to be in our business life and even in our political life.
Absolutely, Johnny. Today, I'm grateful that the earth will continue to revolve without any help from me. I am free to live my own life with knowledge of my higher power is going to show me where to go and what to do, but a person with an experience is never at the mercy of someone with a theory. So when you are hearing from God and reading His Word and moving out with it, you're activating parts of your brain, parts of your habit-forming opportunity, and growing. And because our brain has, they say, almost 3 million years of capacity, why wouldn't we exercise this muscle and turn it into action and really learn and do what we believe? Without it, it's not exercising your brain at all. It's like any other muscle that doesn't get exercised.
I think basically I'm just giving one interpretation here of Genesis, and that is on a symbolic level I'm talking about in this context. And that is the fall, to me, in one context again, represents where mankind has left that capacity to commune with God, that he has gone off on his own, that he's separated. And that separation, I believe, is a fact. in many, many cases. And I believe that a lot of our political and business leaders are experiencing that separation and making all of their decisions, and have put us politically and socially and morally in a great deal of jeopardy.
Absolutely, Johnny. Stepping away from a relationship with God will always separate you from somebody who already knows how to help the earth revolve, somebody who already knows how to make the sun come up and the moon arise. And to be separated from that is ultimately cutting yourself off from what God wants to do for us, and gives us. Sometimes I describe it as having a franchise agreement with God. If I've got a really profitable franchise, I watch profitable franchises, and those franchises like Dunkin' Donuts and McDonald's and Panera, they have a minute by minute. This is how you handle it. You can bring in kids who have never had a job before, and with those step-by-step procedures, within a couple of years, you've got somebody who is paying for college at Iowa State University. Somebody in my business class did that, and now it's just a very profitable business owner. What an awesome way to have a mentorship program. And that's what God wants to do for us. But you have to be in agreement with Him. There are parameters. There's boundaries.
Yes, and the thing about these boundaries is that you can experience both the open highway, so to speak, and the boundaries yourself by placing yourself in that arena of divine consciousness. Look, Sandra, we're going to go into a commercial break now, and since we are, first I'd like to introduce our audience to the work of Stephanie Slevin, a friend and a remarkable singer from UK. This song that we're going to play, which for possibly American audience will hear first, is called I Love You the Most, and it has been played on 30 stations in Great Britain. And I'm told it's based on some personal experiences of Steph. Maybe not the happiest experience, but the song itself is filled with humor and wisdom. I love it.
I may have marmalade on my toast, and you may have your caviar. I may walk to work in my second-hand shoes, and you drive in your fancy car. I'm down here and you're up there. You're giving me the looks like you don't care. But they say love and hate are so very close, so I know that you love me the most. I know by the way you stare at me that deep down inside you care for me. You may drink champagne to my cup of tea, but nobody freaking cares. And you say I ain't the one for you, that I'm way down there beneath the view. But look at what your posh ex done to you, and nobody freaking cares. She took your money and laughed at you, and then slept with all your mates and they were laughing too. So let's kick her to the curb, yeah, me and you, for nobody freaking cares. And I know you said bad things of me, but deep down inside you care for me. For they say love and hate are so very close, so I know that you love me the most. You took to your drink and your one-night stand, so please don't judge me by your own bad hand. Yeah, stand up straight, just be the man, for nobody freaking cares. And come down off your mighty horse and take a chance on me, and we'll run the course, and we'll show the bitch we don't do divorce, for nobody freaking cares. And I know you said bad things of me, but deep down inside you care for me. For they say love and hate are so very close, so I know that you love me the most. Yes, I know that you love me the most.
Boots in Manhattan is a coming-of-age novel by Ray Boylan and Johnny Bluestar. It is about a young Tom Boots Raymond who grows up in New York in the 1940s, who is a member of a street gang.
My friends and I were about to start our own game of stickball when Rabbit Lacey, the head of the Rattlers, came up to us and tried to move in on our game. We were called Dwarves, the youngest members of the stupid gang.
Hey, Kevin, I need you to get some gloves and some stuff I left at my place.
No, this is our game.
Hey, are you my good little dwarf or what?
You've been calling me a dwarf since I was 6. We're not your personal slaves, pal.
Hey, what is this? A dwarf rebellion? All right, big guy. We ditched the dwarf thing. We make you guys regular rattlers.
No, it's too late.
He looked at Jay and me. We looked away. Rabbit was now angry, and he pushed Kevin hard with the palms of his hand. Kevin tried to ram him in the stomach, but he stepped aside, throwing Kevin into the curb where he fell to the ground, bleeding profusely at the knee. Still, he managed to get up.
My street.
Kevin shouted at Rabbit, pointing at him with an angry index finger.
Find out more by Googling Boots in Manhattan, a 1940s coming-of-age novel, part 1 of the novel series The Foot Soldier by Ray Boylan and Johnny Bluestar. Google with the words Boots in Manhattan, Ray Johnny Kendall. That's Boots in Manhattan, Ray Johnny Kendall.
Nowadays, if you are a serious business person, just getting assistance from someone with a license and a bit of experience may not be sufficient. In fact, your realtor actually needs to be knowledgeable enough to be one of your top advisors. Whether you're facilitating a giant merger or selling your company, there's a lot at stake besides your finances. There is the future value of your current investment, financial freedom, integrity, and overall reputation. If you need this kind of assistance, Sandra LaFlamme is a real estate expert with the experience, reputation, and knowledge qualified to assist you in all your key transactions. Sandra LaFlamme, real estate services with integrity and conscience. Contact her today at 888-366-8070. That's Sandra LaFlamme at 888-366-8070. And guess what, everybody? Sandra is with me today, and I want to thank you, Sandra, for your support for this show.
My pleasure, Johnny, and remember, support can be beautiful.
I want to talk about something today, about our show, which is very practical and very investment-oriented. Even though we're going to be talking about business here, as I said before, this is based on spiritual principles we mutually believe in. The first one is that spiritual teachings can and must be applied to all things in our life: eating, sleeping, working out, personal relationships, day-to-day business, and yes, even politics, entrepreneurship, and investments. The second principle I want to mention is the importance of facing challenges directly without flinching and applying these principles in the appropriate way. Today's show will be based primarily on crisis investing in real estate. We'll be part of a series of shows on the subject of crisis investing, which we will offer from time to time over the next few months. Although we will cover various types of crises dealing with real estate, the one that can affect almost everyone is a looming financial crisis. By this I mean the possibility of currency collapse, hyperinflation, the radical devaluation of the American dollar, and the possibility, if this kind of true, unavoidable, depressed economy hits the American people in an open, transparent, and impossible to evade way. Then we will be faced with even chaos, riots, protests, and police and military incursions. In your opinion, Sandra, is this a serious possibility, and how serious?
Absolutely. Let me give you an example of a 90-year-old German who's just bought commercial property here in Sarasota with his 50-year-old German son. He's lived through quite a bit in Germany and has also lived with I walk everywhere, I eat right, and he has many more years in front of him, but he doesn't see currently that he wants to have his money invested in the European community anywhere that currency is only giving him the greatest opportunity of maybe 3% yield on his money there. Mm-hmm. And with the currency being very weak, he's in Sarasota investing in commercial property, knowing that with a triple net lease, in other words, that particular type of financial investment in real estate where you own commercial property and somebody's paying their lease, paying the taxes, paying the insurance, and included in the clauses right now, because this is a very strong business environment, that a long-term contract, the tenant is going to pay for upgrades, including the air conditioning. He has a 7% return on his money, triple net, where he cannot achieve that where he lives. But he's 90. He loves where he lives. He's not moving, but he's not putting any more money where he is, and he's got feet on the ground. With we have all sorts of people from around the world investing here and investing in Florida. And depending on what's going on in their home country, the stability of the currency and the stability of the government is causing them to want to come here and select environments where it's a strong startup business, a strong pro-business area, so that someone in college can start a business and feel like they can thrive just as well as somebody who's moving their business. And Florida and Texas are homestead states. They give a lot of value in our real estate laws and our urban economics to an owner-occupant of their home, and that allows those residents to feel secure in their environment and that primary investment, and then their employees, and it translates into business investment. So we're seeing those two states being very strong right now for many things that cover why the commercial investing is going on from around the world and why residential primary homeowners are moving here and people from around the world are choosing second homes here. They feel, as much as we politically like to discuss in America the pros and cons of our candidate, we do have the longest running political system, and it represents stability around the world.
Well, do you feel that there's any possibility of more difficult times owing to the fact that, for instance, we have run up what they say is at least an $18 trillion debt?
It's a ridiculous amount of what my clients from around the world who were not born here and have been tapping me on the shoulder and saying out loud over the last 8 years is that you are letting socialism in and paying for opportunities for people not to work. And we fear this because that's why we're leaving, or why we left where we are, where we were. We're happy to have a vote, but we're not happy to see progressive socialism, because if you're paying for someone to not work and not be inventive and not take advantage of this fabulous opportunity, sometimes it seems like it takes someone from another country to see, yes, our streets are paved with gold, with opportunity and entrepreneurial options, and any debt that builds up and gets on the shoulders of our 20-year-olds, our 30-year-olds, and our 40-year-olds is weighing down those opportunities, because then they pay more taxes than they are allowed to pay their employees, or in product development, or in technology that helps them get their product or service around the world.
Do you think that there's any chance that the fact that we're creating so much debt can come back on us and affect the value of our currency?
Absolutely. It is a real indicator of the value of our currency, the value of our entire environment. Value comes when there is a opportunity to solve problems instead of paying for people to talk about problems. So to actively involve with solving the problems requires, as an example, instead of tabling real issues in our government, where we can wait a couple of days to appoint a Speaker of the House. That's the third most powerful political appointment that we have. There's a lot we can discuss, but back when God's giving us insight and understanding to pray for our leaders, that is the greatest opportunity we have as a spiritual person instead of talking about a problem, we can use what's inside of us and lift those leaders up so that they receive and hear an understanding and move forward, because leadership makes decisions that benefit everyone. Somebody's just taken a vote as to what do you all think. It's just an opinion taker, a poll taker, and every area that succeeds is succeeding because they have strong leadership, and they need us to back them up. Today I'm going to be involved with real estate transactions. I'm not going to be in Washington. So what I can do is I can pray for them and be involved with offering the strength and ability with where I stand, but it does require staying on top of what's going on. I don't have my head in the sand. I'm watching, and I'm praying, and I'm doing.
in this particular circumstance, in this show, we're going to be kind of dealing with the worst case scenarios. And whereas I agree that we should be always focusing on helping and bolstering up our leadership in the Senate and the House is often receiving bills 300 and 500 pages, and they don't even read them. So I feel like they need a lot of prayer, but we also have to be prepared for all kinds of contingencies. And what I wanted to know about is what would we do? What will people individually do to prepare for the worst possible contingencies? That's possible, isn't it?
It absolutely is. It's good to be diversified. As an example, having there's good information out there to own gold. There's good information to have your positions not highly leveraged. There's good information. If you're working with a great wealth manager and you have a great team around you, they're going to communicate to you not to be tremendously in debt. There is a lot of people who wish they had yielded to what went through the first depression in the United States, and that was having stronger positions so that if you have to leave an area, if you have to leave the Dust Bowl of Oklahoma and get someplace where you can actively be engaged in your enterprise, or if you have to leave an area that's on fire, and they have continuous fires because of the growing concern in that area for dryness of the climate and the other environmental things that are contributing to the lack of water, the lack of replenished aquifer. It's a very real thing. You'll have to move. And that means, can you sell that house? Can you get your stuff to where you are going to be employed or engaged in your occupation? What do you need to take with you? What does it take to affect immediate sale of all your furniture? Because why move it when you can get to the other side of the United States and buy it on Craigslist? Oftentimes, we are moved more by what's going on around us socially than intellectually. So there's some things to consider. What if that happens? Yes, it's a very real thing, and a lot of people came through with a recent real estate depression. There are banking rules that were not enforced. There are banking laws that were not enforced. And what do you do now that your bank's changed hands and your mortgage has been called and you're upside down on your house?
And a lot of that had to do with the irresponsibility of giving people the availability of mortgages that they couldn't afford. And
ridiculous.
And so this is again a form of insertion of a kind of selfishness and stupidity on the part of not just government, but private individuals and different kinds of companies that kind of work together to make that happen. Anyway, we're going to take a break and get back to our discussion of crisis investing in real estate. I've worked with Russian composer Edgar Ahrens for quite a few years, building an inventory of songs, many of which feature singer-performer Patricia Welch. We will soon be releasing these songs, components of an album and a musical in progress called Hadley's Castle. When Edgar and I first got together, I was amazed by the brilliance of his musical scores created for movies, TVs, and animations. Here is a sample of the work he did on the Russian TV series, available now on Amazon, called The Secret Agent's Memoir, which had 2 seasons. This score is called Escape and was created for the first season. I am very pleased to say that Bridge of Light Productions, a division of New Galaxy Enterprises, is proud to be the contact point for television and film companies seeking information about this amazing composer's work. If you're in the entertainment business and wish to know more, contact me at johnnybluestar@gmail.com. That's johnnybluestar@gmail.com.
It is the 15th century. El Tesoro de Cielo, a Spanish treasure ship, sends a scouting expedition to a strange island. Golden statues surrounding them prove the enormity of their find. Suddenly, hordes of ghoulish creatures with scaly green flesh and skeletal wings descend upon them from the sky.
What do you think of this, Rufio?
These creatures are fragile, Captain. We can take them with our swords.
They seem supernatural. Who knows what powers they possess?
Fallen angels, weakened by their treason.
My God! Are you saying they're Nephilim, the devil's host?
I'm saying, whatever they are, we can take them. Do any of you cowards dare join me?
Up against sharp knife-like nails and hideous fangs, the men's swords rip into slimy green flesh. Though black blood pours copiously from their half-naked bodies, creatures miraculously persist. Can the crew survive this bloody, cursed battle?
Find out more by Googling The Thrice Born, a new sci-fi supernatural novel by Carlos Lopez Avery and Johnny Bluestar. Google with the words Carlos Johnny Kendall, The Thrice Born. That's Carlos Johnny Kendall, The Thrice Born.
New Galaxy Enterprises is a media company specializing in wide-ranging content like novels, nonfiction books, screenplays, commercial advertising, web content, etc. One of our most esteemed providers is illustrator Robert W. Zalo. I work on all my most important projects like book covers, logos, web design elements with Robert. As an illustrator, he worked on the Ignatz-nominated comic book, The Expert's Guide to Killing Things That Go Bump in the Night. His skills encompass advertising, magazine illustrations, gaming, comic books, TV production, and scenic painting. His clients include Comcast, Adelphia, Haven Talent, ForceWorks, High Octane Theater, Star Creative Advertising. If you wish to contact Robert, go to JohnnyBlueStar.com and let me know. That's JohnnyBlueStar.com. For artist, illustrator Robert Zalo, an essential component of all the work we do. Maybe he can help you too. I want to put a little interpretation into the word crisis. Theological interpretation, because the word crisis in Greek is the word kairos. And kairos means both crisis and opportunity. Interestingly enough, there's another word in Chinese that similarly has the same dual meaning. So crisis sometimes can be a tremendous opportunity for people, and even during 2008, there were many people who did very, very well. Right now, another thing I would point out that there is a theological concept called kariatic timing, which is sort of timing in the New Testament, referring to this kind of theologically opportunistic timing. In this case, we're talking about crisis investing in real estate. I'm not saying that a crisis like this will happen, but some of us may be guided to look at this as a potential. And, there's a saying in Arabic, actually, trust in God, but tie your camel. So that means that, actually, it means that God wants us to do both. we should be tying our camel, and we're going to look at when we really have to tie our camel tightly. Let's take us, therefore, in this program, the worst case scenario for the time being, and suppose that at least moderately comfortable real estate investments are afforded a hypothetical investor, and assume that he or she and their family live in an urban or suburban environment and they need to leave in a financial crisis. What would they need to do to build a survival station in tumultuous times? What kind of structures, what kind of land would they need? What other resources? Sandra, I realize there would be 1,000 variables on the specifics of this circumstance, but what would be the essentials that they would have to do to prepare and to be able to leave in this type of circumstance?
Well, having a strong team of knowing they get the right now price for the home in which they're leaving, and working with a top-notch realtor in their area. I always have referrals, but those people are worth the plan with the exit strategy, and they sell 12 months a year. So if you live in a snowy climate, there's going to be top-notch people there that know how to sell, because people are always moving. And like the group that I grew up around in Mount Pleasant, Iowa, we have very strong farming community, very strong Amish and Mennonite group that never transfer property except to the next person. They have already taught how to handle the land, taught how to watch the seasons, taught how to grow, let their land rest. And if you're moving into an area where you have an opportunity to own land, or in Florida have a larger yard, or near the city, you can still have a mini farm and even prepare yourself to take the opportunity to be an urban farmer, grow your own, and be happy about you're not buying product. You have control over what you're growing. Farmland, or if you have the ability and you want to stay in place where you have a larger yard, you're giving yourself that opportunity, if it's a neighborhood that allows you to do that, to have more control over your environment and not yet being at the hands of what's going on in the grocery store if that's not food that you want to feed your children, or being close to more urban farmers where there's a cooperative. And there is many factors that can contribute to your health and well-being going forward, and it does hinge on what you eat and what you have access to. And that
let me ask you, in this circumstance of this family needing to leave, and very quickly, I mean, they see the signs, but the signs of this type of economic collapse could be very quickly, like they were before in 2008, gigantically fast. How fast could this be done? How fast could they get out and at least be able to sell their home and this sort of thing if it was an emergency?
Within 3 to 7 days. Most transactions occur with a top-notch team. It can be done in as short as 3 days. And a top-notch team is surrounded by an understanding of the local taxes, the local rules that allow for what we call a clear title. And that allows then money proceeds to be wired to a secure bank account. So if you have a banking relationship or a wealth manager relationship where monies can be wired, you don't want to be leaving town with a check that you need to deposit. It needs to be wired. There's enough check fraud that now closings, they don't accept checks. Along those lines, depending on where you're going, you should have ready access to wired funds, and that has a stable banking relationship associated with the account that you're wiring funds into, and that you have access anywhere in the world would be preferable, but if you're in the United States, anywhere within the United States.
Another point is that sometimes when you're trying to take out, say, more money than $1,000, I'm sorry, than $5,000, and want it in large bills, and this could be true when you're getting like $25,000 or $50,000 or $100,000. It takes a few days for the banks to get it. They have to actually order it. And that's kind of another consideration in this hypothetical scene that we're talking about. Now, you just kind of mentioned that this in your last few statements, that in certain cases, a person might feel they need a safe haven in another country. In certain ways, I understand there might be certain tax advantages. Is this true? And what are the problems they could encounter?
I believe a lot of people see and believe and are enjoying that their money is going a long, long way, and their environment they feel very secure in right now are places like Panama, Costa Rica, and there is a growing what they call an expatriate. People are still come back and forth to the United States and the Bahamas because the environment is currently believed to be an area where your dollar goes a long ways, and you can walk down the street with your children and not fear for your life or even fear for somebody. The current local governments are making them feel like they have a lifestyle in which they believe, based on how things are handled, that they feel safe.
So there are some possibilities for that, but people need to be aware of the laws and the situation in that case. We're going to have another break soon, and there's going to be a song called Autumn Glow by Patty Greer. Patty Greer was the very first person coming onto Threshold. She is probably one of the top experts in crop circles, but before that happened to her, her interest was generated because of a certain illness she had. She was a professional harpist and also a singer and songwriter, and this little excerpt from her song Autumn Glow is what we will offer you before the other ads are run. So we're going to play Autumn Glow right now.
She's an angel with a bended wing. You know that she's grounded so that she will sing, not fly away. She's an angel with a golden heart. You know that she can make the wind
is from West Side Warrior, the memoir of Ray Boylan, a Korean War veteran and crime fighter. He was there fighting in the world's coldest battlefield when the Chinese communists invaded.
Desperate squad members ran past our foxhole yelling, "Get the hell out of here, there's too many of them." Again, we saw the Chinese soldiers charging in with opium-induced mindlessness, oblivious of our bullets. Again, we heard the bugles and whistles. Climbing out of our foxhole, Bob dropped 2 hand grenades behind us, and I threw one over my shoulder. Bullets whizzing by our heads, Bob and I became bolts of lightning flashing across the mountainside. Like a hideous film, desperate scenes like this played out on the Tokong Pass for 3 days. Sometimes I played in the scene. Sometimes I could only watch and wonder if it were real, or if I'd be suddenly jolted out of my trance by an RKO usher saying, "Hey, did you kids sneak in here?"
To acquire this book, Google westsidewarrior.boylan.kindle. Boylan is spelled Boylan. That's Westside Warrior, Boylan, Kindle.
This is Johnny Bluestar. I've worked as a lyricist with Patricia Welch for over 5 years, along with Russian composer Edgar Ahrens. a friend and colleague. Her ability as a singer is simply amazing. She brings a unique and dramatic flair to every song she sings. Over the next few months, we shall be releasing a number of these songs, part of an album called Hadley's Castle. Meanwhile, Patricia has been busy creating a super enjoyable collection of classic standards in an exciting 46-song, 3-CD collection.
Music for Great Entertaining introduces Cocktails, Dinner, and Dessert with Patricia Welch. 3 hours of continuous music. 46 of the all-time classic standards, spanning decades of hit songs. Going to a friend's home for dinner? Cocktails, Dinner, and Dessert with Patricia also makes the perfect hostess gift. This 3-CD compilation is the perfect background music that sets just the right mood for any dinner party.
I'm crazy for feeling so lonely. There was a boy, a very strange, enchanted boy.
To purchase this album, just go to patriciawelch.com/CD. That is patriciawelch.com/CD. You won't be disappointed. You know, I think that, in our discussion of our current political situation, we do see a lot of flawed activities and a lot of selfish, perhaps, alliances that are affecting the security of the United States in many ways, including financially. But I always, in studying manifestation, I have found that condemning people or hating people or violently disagreeing with people, which I am prone to at times, is exactly the opposite of the attitude that I need to have. So this idea of turning the other cheek or loving your enemies, I think is an extremely important psychological foundation for manifesting the things that you really want in your life. What do you think, Sandra?
I believe I understand, and on many points, I probably 100% agree. It's one thing to turn the other cheek. It's another thing to have very, very strong boundaries. I have traveled as a missionary before 9/11 into Kazakhstan, United Arab Emirates, and Dubai, and I found that it was really important for me to observe the customs, observe the understanding of the environment, and to not show up as, hey, I'm the American, look at me and listen to me. It was very much knowing how to handle myself and not put myself in a position where I could potentially lose my life for the light that is shining inside of me. So I hear from my friends that visit me often from Europe and around the world that they value Americans and our understanding of how we were founded on a country of immigrants. It's one thing to live someplace and have a current understanding of there are going to be people not like me in my environment. In fact, I live in a city where there's people from all over the world. It's very cultural. And it's another thing to put up with somebody committing a crime. I will be the first person to put my iPhone up and take a picture and call the police and remove myself from a really wrong situation that very well could escalate. And there's a big difference. I'm not going to put myself in a position where I could be shot at, and that does require hearing from God. If you're supposed to be someplace,
I want to say that turning the other cheek or loving your enemy does not mean not protecting yourself, and it does not mean maybe even having to use lethal force in certain circumstances. Right. It's rather the inner attitude you have towards that person, seeing them as someone potentially divine and important to God, even though they have lost their way. And so you may have to do whatever you have to do. You can become a martial artist. You can carry a concealed weapon, whatever is necessary to protect yourself in a rational way. I think it's perfectly consistent, but something that is sometimes misunderstood.
I absolutely love my neighbor everywhere I am, even if I'm standing in the line at the grocery store. And you know that I live next to a drug dealer in the first house that I ever owned in a neighborhood that I was unaware. And when I became aware of it, I was not happy, and I was the only neighbor who wanted to actively participate in putting a stop to it. It did not call for me personally to do anything, and our local law enforcement did. Now, along those lines, while he was in jail for 6 to 18 months, I did mow his lawn. It's Kentucky. The grass grows fast. And I just went straight across my front lawn to his and back, and really focused on, of course, there's land value. We all knew this in neighborhoods during this last real estate depression, that associations had to take care of the houses where people just up and left and are not taking care of it. It affects your land value, but I did it because I love my neighbor. Now, that doesn't mean, like what you just said, that I'm going to stand by and put up with, I live close to the school. He's putting children in harm and me in harm. And I'm not being judgmental. This is his deal. The police are going to handle it. We have laws. They're going to be enforced. And when this person got out of jail, I had no idea he was in the house. I'm mowing the lawn, and he came out and tapped me on the shoulder and thanked me, and then proceeded to say, you're the only person who will talk to me in the neighborhood. And I thought that was ironic. All the people knew, I found out, that he was actively engaged in that particular enterprise, a fabulous networker, and I was the first one to say and do anything with the system that's in force in the area that I live to help put an end to that. And that doesn't represent loving your neighbor when, now that he got caught, you're not going to wave to him. They knew about it, and that's the irony struck him and I at the same time.
It's the greatest, I think it takes the greatest amount of self-discipline, self-knowledge, and willingness to grow to be able to love your enemy, and I think, or love somebody who's potentially harming you or society, and I think you should be congratulated on taking that position, but I'm not really surprised at the way other people acted, because most people perhaps don't have that discipline and principle.
I agree, and I am always surprised, but I have the environment in which I grew up with. It's not just all environmental, it's a decision. And I'm still friends with people I went to kindergarten with on Facebook. I've heard comedians joke about that. If I knew that I was... right, but if you're living your life in a transparent way, always seeking not just good, not just your definition of understanding of good, what is God's definition? And seeking that higher truth sets the bar always in a growing capacity to with where you are, to a mark that's attainable where there's no condemnation.
Well, I agree, Sandra. Unfortunately, we have to take a break. But when we come back, we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of crisis investing in real estate. I think that you can see from this program so far that Sandra has a unique and important point of view about business and about investment and about real estate. Thank you for listening, and we will be right back on Threshold Radio.